Now, as per an international news agency, China is considering approving next week the issuance of over $1.4 trillion in extra debt in the next few years to revive its fragile economy, a fiscal package which is expected to be further bolstered if Donald Trump wins the US election. China's top legislative body, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, is looking to approve the fresh fiscal package, including 6 trillion yuan, which would partly be raised via special sovereign bonds on the last day of a meeting to be held from November 4th to 8th. Now, China to raise fresh debt via special treasury, local government bonds. Package includes 6 trillion yuan to address local government debt risk. China will approve up to 4 trillion bonds for idle land property purchase. Beijing may announce stronger fiscal package if Trump wins November 5 election. I'm also being joined by Professor Avinash Godbole, who is an expert on matters pertaining to China. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us.
Thank you.
Professor, if you can throw some light, how do you think it will help China?
See, there are basically three drivers of China's economy: external investment, foreign trade, and domestic production and consumption. All three have gone down significantly over the last 1 year. They had hoped that post-COVID recovery in China would be fast enough, but it has not happened. I have spoken with some of the professors and academics who have been to China last year, and they have said that Chinese society is experiencing a social COVID. People are not willing to spend their money, so consumption has also gone down. And with the housing crisis, which was almost like a growth driver for domestic economy, almost 30% of the GDP going down, people are worried even more. Banking crisis has been on, has a cycle there. There's a crisis in 2015. Once again, there's a banking crisis going on. So people don't know where to save their money or where to invest their money. That's why they need this form of economic stimulus right now. And the data that came out at the end of September, the large enterprises are not making profit in China. The only sector that is making profit in China is the new energy, the lithium-ion batteries, solar, and electric vehicles that they make for themselves and elsewhere. But the global slowdown is also going to affect demand for that. Plus, like you mentioned, the potential election of Donald Trump, and there's a possibility of slowdown plus further trade war. So that these are the causes that will push this round of stimulus.
Professor, if you can throw some light, what factors played against China that brought its economy to this stage that they have to now approve a fiscal package to revive its economy? What lessons also, if you can, beg your pardon, what lessons also what other nations can take from China's stage?
Well, Chinese over-depended on the Western consumption for their markets.
Right.
So they got stuck in the method that they were used to. But for last 10 years, their political leaders have been making these announcements that our economy is unstable, unsustainable if we continue down this path. They had also announced something called dual circulation right at the start of COVID to increase domestic consumption, to reduce domestic business competition and bottlenecks. The interprovincial competition is quite high. The bottlenecks are high. Red tapeism has returned in China, and that also has not worked. So there are a mix of factors. People not willing to spend, the investments not returning as rapidly as they did, and the world facing slowdown and the trade war. China actually oversold its rise as a power before COVID and during COVID. And then the world has become more and more wary of China as well. So there are several factors that come together for why China's economy has gone down so rapidly as it has.
Professor Avinash, let's talk about China and India bilateral ties as well. They are also improving. Will China, is China eyeing more trade with India to improve its economy?
Yes, and that has also been a part of problem. India has wanted investments from China. There were several agreements signed in 2014 and 2015 when Xi Jinping came to India and Prime Minister Modi went to China. But not many of them have fructified. There was an investment treaty about producing creating a railway university, about electrical machinery factory in Orissa. There was an agreement about a truck factory coming to Maharashtra. But as you know, none of that have really fructified. Chinese really want to do business. They don't want to do long-term investments in India. and that has been the part of the problem. I hope and I believe that the government will undertake measures to address that.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Avinash, for joining us and sharing those details.